to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business are the minutes for January 10th. And I've read them and reviewed them and look for a motion.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. First order of business is 242 No DP, number 0 Ray Street. First of all, are there any abutters here for that project? Okay. Excuse me.
I have to, I have a conflict. I'm going to recuse myself, go to the back of the room.
Okay. All that's before us is just to agree on the wetland line. This is not an application for approving of any houses or lot lines or anything else. All it is to come with an agreement with the applicant that the wetland line is in fact what it is. So if you want to stay for that, you're more than welcome, but I'm just letting you know, nothing before us tonight is an application for houses or whatever he's going to do to it. We have no, and he can't apply for anything until we approve the wetland line. So that's all he's here for tonight, is just the approval of the wetland line and the, what's it, floodplain or riverfront? Riverfront. So that's all that they're here for. I just want to let you know so you don't waste your time. Okay, Greg, go ahead.
Good evening, Greg Lockwood from Williamson's Garages. Here presenting the applicant, Messina Development, for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed for what's known as 0 Ray Street. Everybody knows where Ray Street is. This is an unfinished portion of Ray Street that extends over to North and South Cross Road in that area. It's about 7.3 acres. It's undeveloped woods that backs up to an extensive wetland system. At least half the property is within the Commission's jurisdiction. Mosquito Brook flows behind the property. It joins another stream before flowing under culverts that are over on the North Cross Road section. The culverts are substantial. A large amount of water does flow through there. There is floodplain. Originally, we had asked the Commission to approve that as well in our ANRAD application. We've taken that off the table and submitted revised plans. We just want to make sure we're showing it right before this Commission approves it. And the problem is the floodplain, it steps down 8 feet from one side of Ray Street down to where it goes through the culverts. There's a flood study, but the channel where it is today is different than where the channel is or was shown on the FEMA maps. So Christensen and Sergi originally showed it. We did some transects. We're comfortable with that line, but it's hard to explain to the Commission how we came up with that based on the plans that we had originally submitted. So we've withdrawn that, and it's back to just riverfront area and BVW at this point. So if something is proposed down here, we'll come back to the Commission with a notice of intent, and the BLSF will be shown on those plans. But I did have a chance to walk the site with Jennifer before snowfall. I think it was sometime in late November, November 30th. We looked at the wetland line. We made some changes in the field. Those changes are reflected on the plans that you see before you today. We also flagged a portion of the mean annual high water on the subject parcel, and then we utilized aerial photographs for the remainder. The bulk of the riverfront area is off-site, but there's portions you'll see on the photo that shed the 200-foot riverfront area onto this site. Some of it was a little subjective. I submitted a photograph with my ANRAD with a bunch of arrows showing where we digitized our line. And Jennifer has some photos too that show the channel slightly different. So because we don't have a file number, what we'd like to do is to be able to sit down with Jennifer and look at her photos, look at our photos, and adjust the line if need be, so that when we come back to the next hearing, we'll have a line that's mutually agreed upon that the commission can act on.
Okay. Jack, any questions?
Yeah, Greg, could you point out where does Mosquito Brook cross the boundaries of the parcel?
It does, right through here.
Okay.
And the culverts I referred to are right here.
That is the culvert near North Cross Road.
That's right.
Okay.
And there's a large beaver dam right here that looks like it's opened up every so often by, I imagine, the DPW to keep it flowing. But it's clear to me that when that beaver dam is active, that the water backs up quite a bit within that floodplain. When I was out doing my delineation, it was flowing, the dam was not active, and there were no signs of recent beaver activity.
Just a question on your legend there, the green lines, you've got a dotted line and a partially solid green line. What are those?
So the
Designate.
dashed green line that I have is the BVW boundary. And there's a small little finger of BVW up here too.
Yep.
That sheds the buffer across the unfinished portion of Ray Street. The solid green line is a 100-foot buffer zone from those BVW flags.
Okay.
This light blue color I have is the delineated portion from here to here of the mean annual high water associated with Mosquito Brook. This solid blue line with no flags was based on aerials. This line here is the 200-foot riverfront area.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, the channel is somewhere here,
Yep.
off-site. But as you go this way, it gets closer to the property, and now you have riverfront area extending on the parcel.
Is there like a cleared portion looking like a logging road right near there? That
There is.
Yeah.
From here, it goes all the way through. With a little maintenance, you could probably drive a pickup truck down there.
Yeah, okay. I'm oriented. Thanks.
And I should point out too, there's a detention pond over here that was part of the subdivision.
North Cross subdivision. So that was
Yep.
permitted, and I know sometimes when detention ponds are that old, they can be jurisdictional to the commission just because they were before 96, right? I think that
96.
one was. And, but this one isn't associated with any BVW of any variety. It's clearly a dug channel. It may have vegetation and things in it, but I think at any time where we've sort of taken jurisdiction over, it's where the detention basin, due to lack of maintenance or whatever, has sort of naturalized and become part of the wetland.
Connected to an previously existing wetland.
Right, and this one's just a dug, and it's not minor, it's huge, but it is clearly dug only for the purpose of the subdivision. And it is unmaintained, so.
It accepts flow from North Cross. There's a drain manhole and 2 catch basins that we believe are the only drainage features that flow into that pond.
Sean?
I don't have any questions at this point.
Joe?
That's good. Just want to understand what we're being asked to do here. So it's a confirmation of a line. What I'm hearing is we're going to consider the floodplain issue separately at some future date.
That's right.
So it's not that we're not declaring it floodplain or therefore not declaring it a resource area. We're simply not addressing it. We're going to specifically exclude it perhaps in any decision we might render.
We're not going to vote on anything tonight because they don't have a DEP number.
Well, then the next piece of it was, there's still also some discrepancy with the line that you and Jennifer were looking to confirm, that you want to be able to leave open. So you're going to, theoretically, I think you're going to be asking for continuance to allow you guys time to work that out, so it is that we can ultimately make a determination on at least that piece of the resource area. Am I correct?
That's right, and what we need to iron out is the portions of the mean annual high that are off-site, as well as this little stretch here that's still on-site. We don't expect major changes, but we want to make sure we get it right.
And it's because you don't have access off-site for whatever reason, to be able to determine that accurately?
It's actually owned by the same owner. Off-site, I guess the hindrance to getting out there is it's, hundreds of feet into the swamp, so to speak.
And really, the main difference is where FEMA is showing that center line, it's not close to where the channel is today and where it's been for some time. If we use the channel that's shown on the FEMA maps, it would flow right through an area that doesn't show any signs of riverine characteristics whatsoever. It's purely floodplain. There is a well-defined channel out here. And there's also some areas where there's braided sections from flooding that flood enough that they should be probably included as mean annual high. So, for instance, this line here could move over 20 or 30 feet.
Sure. I mean, most of us know that FEMA's level of accuracy, or precision for that matter, is very suspect a lot of times. But usually when you have an analyzed floodplain, if you have a stream bed that has actual stated elevations by analysis, usually the channel's pretty well defined. In this instance, that's not the case.
It's not the case. And it could be that when this was mapped, maybe that's where the channel was. And there's been enough beaver activity out here over the years that it could have been lost. And now there's a new channel. I only had access to photos back to 1990. And based on what I saw,
I was going to really stick my neck out and say the firm map is, the analysis is, let's say, 40 years old. Could be. And that's a pretty flat area. There's not going to, channels aren't going to redefine themselves that rapidly, are they?
well, it's odd that it drops 8 feet too. If you walk back there, it's very flat. So it's unique.
Okay. So to your point, is that's why you want to resolve that question first before you commit to anything on the drawing. We'll address that at a later date.
That's
Is that what I
right.
hear?
Right.
All right.
Well, I think, too, I want you to be comfortable with the methodology for that. I mean, if you would much rather that, they truck out in the swamp and find mean annual high water, because what we're talking about doing is being conservative about the location of mean high water, and then using aerial photographs to determine the bank. But, that's something ultimately you need to be, as a commission, to be
So
comfortable with.
again, you have the advantage of having looked at the studied floodplain calculation, or at least
No,
the
we-
report.
I don't think we've, FEMA,
What do you
I
see? You're looking
gave you
just at the
FEMA
firm
map.
map in that, what do they call that, an A, where they actually state the actual elevations of?
It's an AE,
AE,
and
right.
there's transects along that reach, and it drops 8 feet along that reach.
But the topography doesn't do that.
It doesn't appear to. And based on my discussions with the,
These are the different elevations where it drops, so you can see it's 168, it's 167, it's 165, it's dropping as the stream goes this way. But this channel, that's based on, if you look at the aerials that I passed around, the channel is now down here somewhere.
and it's not a tiny channel, it's, 15 to 20 feet wide.
Sure.
We may decide to do our own flood study.
That was my next question. Has there been any history of lomas filed on this parcel? Or?
I don't have an answer to that.
No, there's no lomas. Because we can see them on the FEMA, they would pop up, you would see them listed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm all set for now.
So you got a lot of work to do in 2 weeks.
Yes,
3 weeks.
3 weeks, excuse
3
me.
weeks, to our next meeting.
but that should be plenty of time.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have no questions until I see the new plan. Deb? No questions. Doug? No questions. Do any of butters want to speak? Like I said, it's just the wetlands delineation, which is going to get continued anyways. So this plan is not accurate until it gets reaffirmed by the applicant and administration.
So as far as the BVW is concerned,
That line
you're
is
quite
accurate.
comfortable with.
Yep.
That's accurate, that's nailed down.
It's the riverfront.
It's really the riverfront and the, riverfront principally and floodplain secondarily.
So butters all set with that? Okay. When do you go, so you have to, you have to do planning or zoning then, too? Or none?
Nothing yet. This is the first step,
Okay,
and then it would probably just be planning.
just, okay, this is where we can give the abutters a heads up, because it seems like there's a few of them.
Yep.
All right, so we need a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's
And
unanimous.
it's February 14th,
That's
just
3 weeks.
in case you were thinking of, you had Valentine's Day plans or something.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
You too. Okay, next one is the continuances, 242-1719 Mass Ave and Chickering Road, to continue to Valentine's Day.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1721, request to continue to Valentine's Day.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1724, 21 High Street.
So you'll recall at the last meeting, there were a few peer review comments left to be addressed. A few members of the commission had requests, there was a request for a paver detail as well as some changes to the materials used to construct the walkway. I believe the majority of those issues have been addressed, and we have the applicant and their representative here to review those changes and hopefully bring this to closure.
For the record, I'm Tanya Hartford. I'm representing RCG North Andover Mills. Since we saw you last, we did submit our final comments to TEC, the peer reviewer. They came back with no further comments. They were satisfied with all of our answers to their questions. We did receive planning board approval on January 16th, and the plans you see are pretty much the plans that we submitted to you before the last meeting.
I had a question on the subgrade for the, that's in here, right? The subgrade on the fire access and the sections and the walkway itself.
Yeah, the stone dust pad, you had asked to add in a note on about 3/8 inch crushed stone.
Yeah, to mix it in, yeah.
And we did that. We added that to the
Okay.
detail.
And Jen was going to look it up herself. The subgrade for the fire truck access.
So I did review what was submitted, and it just seemed a little, I went to the UNH site to look for detail.
You talk about the base course and the bedding course beneath the...
For the pavers.
Paper pavers, yeah.
So for what
Doesn't
was,
even come close to what UNH asked for.
right, so there seems to be more along the lines of 1 to 2 feet of, and again, that's for porous pavement asphalt, so this is pavers. So the width on the base course can vary, and I couldn't find like a set number, so what I said, I decided, since we have sort of a generic thing from UNH and a generic thing from the engineer, that maybe the best thing to do is, upon final design, to get that detail and have it be submitted when they've decided what paver they're using, and have some kind of specifications from the manufacturer as to how to best install
We
it.
had stormwater reviewed.
Yeah,
So what did the review engineer say? Because it comes right down to the porosity of the paver itself. It's clay paver, it's not porous. I think you're relying on infiltration between the cracks.
right.
Correct? Yes.
But they're also not taking credit for any of this
Yeah.
in their stormwater
So it's just a BMP.
calculations. Right.
Okay.
So we want it to function, and we want it to work as implied, but I don't think it's, I think it's something that can be
I
left
think you just
to
hit the nail on the head. It's not a porous paver, it's not intended to be. They're using the buzzword, but it's not, it's a clay paver, and whatever they get through the cracks into the subbase is probably the best you're gonna get.
Well, the detail gave us like options of pavers they could choose from, so like I was saying, if once you choose, and that comes with some kind of specification, if we just get that specification and we know what they're designing to, then I think we can easily approve it, but I think their current specification isn't, as Lou said, the kind of depth that the generic UNH detail requires. Theirs was more like, I think you had the option in the base course for like 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
And I think UNH's was more like 8 to 12 inches or minimum 12 inches. And some of them went up to 2 feet, but I know depth,
Should be like a roadway design, it's for a fire truck.
Right.
Yeah, so it should be designed like it would do a road.
Yes, so, yeah, we have no problems working offline with Jen on getting a spec that works for Jen and for us. And if that includes increasing the sub-base, we're happy to do
Well,
that.
that was my concern. My concern is that area between the building, and the future building, and the pond, it's very wet. So if you're trying to use it as an access for fire safety, and you skip on the subgrade of the roadway, you're gonna create an issue. So what we're here, it's here before us, so I think we should go to a good spec, so with due confidence, we don't have to worry about trucks getting stuck or not being able to access the front of the building should there be a disaster.
this is only a very short section too. You can see on the plan in front of you and above you that it's just that gray area off to the sort of back right of the building. It isn't the entire path.
No, I know,
it's
but
just that section.
even that little bit, if the fire department asked for that for a reason.
Right.
So if they can't use it, what good is it? So I think we should, and the drainage thing, we gotta get water to flow underneath without disturbing it. So that's my concern. And that's why I asked about the walkway, just for tightness. So it doesn't erode and doesn't, because stone dust has no water retention at all, it just erodes.
Yeah,
Because there's
and we had modified that detail.
Yeah, because it doesn't, there's nothing to hold it. So those,
Got a question regarding the fire department wants to get in just that part. They don't want to go along the back of the building at all?
That's correct.
well, at least from there, they can access with hoses versus going from the back of the building and running hoses around the building. At least now they can go to the front of the building, that front corner, and they can feed. They could do what they have to do.
Well, the only thing is, once the trucks, if they pull a couple of trucks in there, then you're gonna have to back them out. You can't turn them around or anything.
Well, you
like that.
can't- you
Or is
can't-
somebody gonna try to get down the path or pass way
Well,
down the path?
shame on them. They would know, hopefully they'll know better.
Well, during an emergency, you never know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's designed, that works, it gets them to the front of the building, but it's critical that road, that access supports
Well, I agree with you.
heavy weights,
You should design it for the vehicles that are gonna use it.
right?
And I think we've just come full circle, because I don't think this needs to be compared to the UNH standard spec for porous pavement subbase, because that was intent there is for infiltration to move waters through it. That's not this intent at all. Calculation doesn't cover,
Well, it's both. I mean, I think.
just
it
as a
was-
PMP, though, there's no analytical premise that it needs to be that way.
Right, not
So
for
it really
loading
comes right down to the
criteria.
structure of the roadway.
Right.
The ability to support the apparatus that's going to be over it. Because from our perspective, that if someone inadvertently goes down there under unfavorable conditions and the base isn't correct, the mess it creates is within the jurisdiction. That's what we need to prevent. And I think there's enough information at your point of design where you could probably submit that before we issue the order of conditions. I don't think it was something we should condition.
No, because I think they want to close tonight, so I just conditioned it that they would submit it. We have their basic spec already, and it's incorporated into this, but just that a final spec when they choose the particular paver, like, whatever it's going to be named, there's like
Yeah.
at least 3 or 4 or 5 names of pavers they could use in that spec, I think.
But the subbase is going to be the same regardless of the paver. I mean,
Yeah, so
they're just
we're-
saying they're going to look for a minimum bearing capacity
Yeah,
of the subbase.
we're happy to take a condition stating that that the subbase will match bituminous asphalt subbase, except with the top course will just be a paver, for aesthetic purposes. And that's the real intent of it. So it'll create a hardened surface for fire truck access designed for that vehicle, but we'll just have a more decorative surface.
Another thing you might want to think
I
about.
gave you the a copy of what was
Two
submitted.
is possibly
Oh,
putting
what-
a
the
gate.
spec. That's what I've been, that's what I've been
A gate
reading
at
from,
the
yeah.
end,
Yeah.
Not at
Doesn't-
the entrance.
Doesn't
but-
cut it.
So nobody drives on the sidewalk or goes out into the, beyond the access. So if you put a gate they can only go as far as the truck access will allow them to. And it won't interfere with emergency vehicles getting in there, because that's as far as they're gonna go anyways. I would strongly, there'd be something to consider, so you keep a car or pickup truck or from using the sidewalks as an access to the property. That's up to you. That has no bearing on the wetlands, except unless they destroyed it. But, okay, Jack, questions?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Sean?
No questions.
Joe?
I guess the discussion will come when we review the order conditions.
Okay.
No questions, sir.
Deb? Okay, motion?
I just,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
know if there's any
everybody.
butters.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, you can go up to the podium, please.
I live at 54 Water Street. I have a couple of things. I asked at the last meeting about a permit for the walkway that's down there. And I had called somebody and they said there would have been no permit issued to plow down, grate, fill in wetlands, destroying wetland vegetation, essential insects to wetlands, or other valuable assets to wetlands. There's also no law stating if the land has been maintained for 8 years to improve wetland property. They have that right, because it does not apply to wetlands.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to? I don't
The
understand.
wetlands itself, the vegetation, back about 9 years ago, they had all the heavy equipment come in and grate and knock down all the vegetation and the pools that were there, all the different pools of water that were around the pond.
9 years ago?
I've been with the commission for 10 years, and the last permit that they had was for work on the opposite side of the pond. A detention basin was put in, but there has been no work around that pond in the 10 years that I've been here, other than the installation of that basin.
What I'm saying is, the property as it was, I'm doing a picture thing, but I haven't gotten all the pictures yet of what the land looked like and the destruction that's been done down there.
The permitted activity, or you're saying there's,
I'm talking about the actual, when the vegetation of all that property was all graded, and then the grass put in.
and what year was that?
I have to get all my stuff together, I'm still working on that.
Well, I've been on the commission for 12 years, and I don't remember anything being done on that side. We did the swale, because
I mean, we can pull up.
the chemical place was getting flooded, and we worked on that. Then we worked on, but that walk has been there as long as I can remember. So that might even be before the bylaw.
This is the Water Street side? It is, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, that walk has been there.
I'm talking about not the Water Street side, but after, on the other side of the pond. All that was vegetation.
Here's, we can do
On
images.
the other side of the pond?
Yeah, it was all
On
vegetation.
Prescott Street side?
Yes.
So here's the current,
I have some old pictures of it all with the
There we go, right there. There's-
mill.
so this is current pictures. So the oldest that is on Mass GIS is 1990s, black and white.
Actually, Jen, just so we're clear, the area you're describing, is it show, that general area, does it show on this
That's what's right in
here?
here now. It's that line, see the path? That's along the top of the photo that's, I'm showing? That's current. So here's 19.
And that's the path you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's 1990s photography, which is the oldest that's on Mass GIS, and the same area is clear and the same path is there. This is the oldest aerial photography that's on Mass GIS. So in the 90s,
20, 25 years it's been there.
it's been there.
For the record, Julie Rondrock, wetland scientist. As you know, I've worked for the commission about 24, 25 years ago. So over the years, the only projects I recall and even work in this area was the sewer line that the town installed in through that area. Because I remember walking the fields back in the middle, later 90s at that point. And I know that that area was open. There was the vegetation, you know, there was some impact during that sewer line installation. But probably prior to that, in the last 20 years, I don't recall any projects on the property. I'm not sure if RCG is familiar with it, but other than the sewer line going through that area, my understanding is that's been pretty maintained as an open grassed area. It's from my recollection.
So in any, when did the mills sell? Like, when was the purchase date?
RCG's affiliate bought it in 2007.
So violations on a current property can only be pursued for 3 years after sale. So, I mean, even if we were aware, like if I popped up this 1990s photograph and we all went, oh, which we didn't, it's clearly the same thing out there from the 90s as is there now. Our ability to go after a violation expires 3 years from the date of sale.
Okay.
And DEP has its own process for pursuing over a certain number of years. They don't pursue violations anymore either. So I don't think there's a violation out there, even if things have changed dramatically in the time you've lived on the property. There's nothing that's a current violation.
Okay. Also, I have, I just collected today is 31 signatures for a petition. And I have, this I want to give to you, Jennifer, when they do the, receive a copy of the ordinance of conditions at the time of insurance that I get notified.
If you give your email address to Merrill when we issue the order of conditions, we will send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
What's the petition for, Linda?
Well, we just want to preserve what's down there. I mean, there's so much, and it's not the raccoon I found out. But there's a lot of things that are required to be down there for the ecosystem, for,
Okay.
and that's what I want to look into. I'm still working on that project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so any more questions from the commission?
Do I give this to you?
So we need a motion.
So, let me just,
She'll take it.
Jen, you're all set with this to close?
Yeah.
Correct.
You're satisfied?
Yep.
Then I'll move that we close and issue in 21 days or less.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. They have an appeal period if they want. Sure. That's fine.
Do we have, this, oh, there it is. Okay, I'm sorry. We have a draft order, right?
Yeah, we do. Next one is 242-1725-16 Beaver Brook Road.
So if you recall at the last hearing, we had discovered from looking at the as-built plan from the certificate of compliance for this property that there had been an unpermitted deck and patio installed. So we requested an after-the-fact filing, which for those particular items which you see before you, just as a, to go back and review, I did review the delineation. The delineation is the delineation that was out there when the house was approved. The home at that time was just outside of the 50-foot. The patio that was approved and on the as-built was within the 50-foot. Again, this was in the 90s. It was not a certified vernal pool back then. It is considered a vernal pool now. So that changes the setbacks, which at the time of approval of this house were 25-50, now to 50-75, which does put basically the entire, most of the structure in the no disturb and no build, or all of the structure. the existing deck and the enlarged patio do not extend any closer to the wetland than what was previously out there before. And then I guess the remainder of the questions you can pass on to the engineer.
Jack?
Thank you. No, I think you probably want to summarize what's on the plan.
Okay.
My name is TJ Melvin. I'm with Christensen and Sergi here on behalf of the applicant, Babu Patel, for the project at 16 Beaverbrook Road. One thing I do want to clarify that Jennifer said, the patio did not encroach further to the wetlands than the approved patio, but the deck was never proposed. So I just wanted to clarify that it is more of an issue with the setbacks. So at the last meeting, as Jennifer discussed, we had made a few edits to the plan. We connected wet flag 4 to wet flag 8, as Jennifer had requested. We had also added proposed 18 to 30-inch stones along the limit of the clearing of the site. The only area that I didn't add it would be along the driveway. There's an existing wall and vegetation right up to it. I can add it there as well. It just seemed like it would cause more disturbance to get them there than just to leave it off. So as Jennifer mentioned, we added the patio and the deck, and we had to slightly adjust the siltation barrier line to accommodate going around the deck as it was going beneath it before. That's pretty much all the revisions that we had made, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, I think I may have suggested monumentation of the tree line to preserve, because, you know, we had the building there within the no disturb zone, and the no disturb zone of the vernal pool. You know, they've proposed 18 to 30-inch stones. I think that's consistent with the recommendation. I think Jennifer had noted maybe larger stones would be appropriate. We could monument the trees as well, so I think what we need to do is give them some specific direction on what to do. But I think it's very important that we monument that so that further encroachment into the no disturb zone is avoided in future years.
Thank you. I agree. Sean?
I read that recommendation as well, and is there a reason why we didn't go with, you know, the usual stone wall, 2 foot by 2 foot?
That's generally the requirement when it's new construction. This would be quite a wall, quite a distance,
It's a long one.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the wall. I do think, you know, if we're talking 18-inch stones, those are going to be pick up and movable size. That's why I wouldn't recommend something that small. And they're shown on here like every 15 feet, which I also think is maybe would be a little strange in his yard. At that point, maybe just the dry laid field stone wall would be the better thing to do. But I have, you know, we've done on a couple occasions monumentation with some fairly large boulders, but, you know, I think those would need to be in the 36-inch range, something that couldn't be picked up and moved. And in that case, I would say farther apart would be fine. Usually the commission says 25 to 30 feet apart.
I thought they were closer because we're trying to eliminate access
I thought so.
to the wetlands.
We're not going to eliminate access. I mean, if you put stones out there, you're going to be able to, but there's no issues with encroachment out there. There's no brush dumping, there's no clearing beyond the limit of clearing. I mean, I do think monumentation's important so people know what's back there, and that's why I thought maybe the large stones and the in between the signs on the trees or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think just putting small stones out there and sticking placards on them, like even now, I didn't know there was a stone wall along the driveway, because when I was out there was 2 feet of snow on the ground, so.
Because I know Sean likes stone walls.
Sean's not alone.
Who doesn't?
Yeah,
Sean-
no,
Sean's
But I know,
Sean's not
no, I
alone
just
in
say
his-
Sean likes stone walls. It should be a 36-inch minimum of a stone. And I'm in disagreement with the 15 feet apart.
What dimension?
Pardon me?
What dimension? If you want a non-movable stone, it should be at least 1,000 pounds, half a ton,
We want to wait, we
which
can
is
do
18
weight
by
too.
3 by 3.
Yeah. And then, but under Jack's agreement, if we could put the, like a granite post of some type or a 4x4 with the wetlands in between the stones.
Well, there's a tree line. It looks like we're monumenting the tree line, and that is the intent of my recommendation. Why couldn't we just monument the trees, too? I think we do that in other...
How far is the ways the stone? I don't know, plan.
Well, the current tree line varies from being close to, you know, as far away as over 75 feet to being, you know, along the driveway within feet of the wetland, like a couple feet. But that's how the lot was permitted, and definitely the wetland has encroached. The street is known as Beaver Brook.
For a reason.
Right.
Well, what you can do is you could do it where there are trees, but when it goes away from the tree line, then you put the posts next to the stones.
And the stones.
You can do, you know, reasonably do both.
Joe, do you have any suggestions?
Use the stones where it's close to the house, you mean? And then,
No, I would say use the stones along, if we're not going to have a wall along that 25, then I would, is it 25 or 50 on this?
It would
It's
be 50 in
because
this
is- yeah.
location.
So I would say, you know, along, and this isn't at the 50 either,
No.
right? I mean, so it is really just along tree line, the entire stretch?
right.
Yeah, well, I would still recommend at least the large boulders to the size that Lou and Doug had referred to, and whether it's on a pole or on a tree, I don't know, but you just want it in line with the boulders, I would think.
Right.
And I don't know if the trees are going to be in line with the boulders, I think the trees would be further back. But anyways,
It's kind of like a balance between really, no pun intended, a rock and a hard place. But the reality is we have an original house that was permitted with a waiver granted back then, probably. It was built according to that plan as far as we know. The as-built shows it was. But sometime after that, a violation occurred. Someone took it upon themselves to encroach into that sacred area and build this patio and deck, and they did that. No discussing that it wasn't. The original, and I apologize, I was not at the last meeting, you guys know that. But was the original submission not showing this patio a back deck?
So I brought it up before they came to the hearing that the as-built showed a patio, and I had recalled when I had been out there that there was something on the house. When I looked back again, because I had implied that maybe they could just take it off the as-built plan and put it on this plan, we realized it wasn't the same thing. And that's when the owner admitted that he had added the deck. And so then we decided we needed
But the original NOI submitted as part of this for the addition
did
didn't
not
show
include
it.
it, no.
So I'm going to, it was probably discussed at the last meeting, but boy, oh boy, you've got a surveyor and an engineer who stamped a plan, who goes through great efforts of showing all these things to justify, we're kind of arguing the question of whether we need monumentation or a wall or what as a barrier. The reality is, we had a filing that wasn't accurate, and oops, this is more than an oops, right? It seems to me.
It wasn't a building permit
Yeah.
or a,
So never mind the deck, it's that it wasn't even shown on the plan. So, if this is what we're using to issue a permit, how could it be missed by the surveyor and not shown on the plan? So because of your recollection of what this was, did we catch it? Now, that being said, to me, that more than justifies the need to heavily monument and separate it from this area. Now that it's an ephemeral pool, and it wasn't before, it only compounds that, I think, that, we've got a sensitive area out there, and we need to let the landowner now and the future landowners down the road understand that this area can't be encroached upon. Add to that, we're putting in a new addition, a new structure. At least in that area, you need to fortify that. I just think any relaxation in this instance here is probably something that's pretty close to something we wouldn't normally do.
Jennifer, could I just, sorry, I think you're all set. Could I just clarify one thing? Is there any discussion whether there was more clearing from what was approved? It's just the matter that
No.
the deck was
just-
constructed within
right.
an already disturbed area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The patio was constructed within lawn without any permits.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't discussing
We're
that.
not, no, and
there's
I've been
no
clear
land
from the beginning
disturbance.
that there has been no encroachment into the treed area. Everything appears when you pull up aerials from over the years that it's the
I
same.
don't want to whip the post any more than I need to at this point, but I mean, the engineer and the surveyor goes through great detail in the front of the house to show all the juts and jogs and where they are, but they missed the deck and the patio in the back. I mean, that,
I don't know, well,
I
You're-
just, I'm
TJ's
bothered
here.
by that. I'm really bothered by that. And, that was probably discussed at the last meeting, but
My guess would be, I mean, I don't do the surveying, but we did the original filing, we did the original as-built. So the surveyors probably went out and simply did topo and located the flags just to make sure that the tree line and the topo was still accurate as what we had from 20 years ago. So we really didn't relocate the building.
that's not what our filing standards require, and I hope you understand that. I mean, we require, a true survey of the property with each filing, and, when something is different, especially when it's an encroachment, you owe it professionally to this commission to present factual information, and an omission of that, I would have to suggest, and I won't say it public, but it seems to be a gross omission, if not intentional. And boy, oh boy, that bothers the hell out of me.
Well, and like some of the commissioners have said before, we're not trying to penalize the current homeowner, but if we don't get this fixed now,
well, the
20,
current
30
homeowner,
years down the road when he sells it,
the current homeowner is the original homeowner.
I know, but at some point, he's gonna sell it. So a new homeowner comes in.
We owe it to the record to be accurate.
And so we gotta have a record plan so that if he tries to do something, we have an as-built plan with the monumentation, with the boulders, and everything's there. Versus trying, unfortunately, this commission's been around for a long time that they can remember. But that's why we go forward, when we pick up on something like this, we make sure that we fix it so that for future commissioners and future applicants know what they're dealing with. I mean, we could finagle with the current homeowner, but that doesn't fix, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But we're not trying to penalize the applicant at all. Unfortunately, he's here to take the brunt of it, although he did build a deck illegally.
So you might, just to summarize where I'm at, I think that given the facts that we know regarding this application with a new structure in close proximity to an ephemeral pool, I would expect, some sort of very detailed discussion about how we physically separate that from the resource area. And, and that's something we probably debate in our deliberations on order of condition, but,
At a later date.
yeah, I'm leaning towards something pretty substantial.
So I'm guessing you want to see a wall, because I'm the one who's going to have to write that order of conditions.
Yeah, I want to
so-
put it in context of what the yard actually looks like. You probably have photographs, but, I mean, I want it to be an obvious separation between the building and the resource area. And I'm all set.
How many feet is it to build a wall?
Along it would be, it
I could see
technically,
not doing it along the driveway, within reason. We have a reasonable, actually, you know what, it wouldn't look bad up against the driveway.
There is an existing
There
wall.
is an
along the
existing
There is a
driveway.
wall.
Yes.
Okay. So, how many feet are we looking at?
100, 120, 40 scale.
Maybe a little bit more, but,
Yeah, probably like 120 to 160, I'd say. Probably.
yeah, okay. Jack, you're right on.
So that, I don't think that's unreasonable. If you want us to make a decision tonight, we have to become agreement.
well, I don't have an order written, so,
Well, no, but we can still vote on it.
To close.
no, we can't, because we have a
can't.
3-week
can't.
meeting.
3 weeks,
yeah.
so we're going to continue
okay.
anyway.
3 weeks, we
Right, and
cannot do
I
that.
do have a couple questions. What kind of foundation is the addition going to be on?
I believe it would be a full foundation based on the
I would say
topography.
a frost wall. You're gonna build a full
Or,
foundation?
well, more than just a slab, I should say.
A frost wall?
Yes.
4-foot wall.
Well, the owner's here. He might be able to specify what exactly he's,
Architectural plans yet?
Are you gonna connect it to the cellar that you have now?
If I have to, I will, yeah.
We don't want you to.
you know.
I don't have to, then I don't.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then we should get a stockpile area just somewhere on that plan, because you have limited space. You're not gonna stockpile around the back. You've got the septic system out there, so we should know where you're putting those soils. And also if you anticipate any dewatering requirements, because that should also be on the
Well, they
plan.
got a spot in the front corner at the end of the driveway.
So why don't we give TJ the limit of the wall that we want now, and he can design it, so when they come in the next meeting, we can close.
So typically, the wall would be something sort of natural, like what's along the driveway, the 2x2 dry-laid field stone, 2 feet by 2 feet.
And the monumentation,
Well, if we have
You
the,
got the wall, you don't need the...
if we have the wall, that's the
Yeah.
monumentation.
well, it wouldn't
Well,
hurt to
markers
put a
on the
couple of
trees.
placards.
Markers on the
Just
trees.
the trees.
On the trees.
Just on the trees.
Agreed, yeah,
A
okay.
couple of placards on the trees wouldn't hurt.
And would you like that for the total length of the tree line? Or
It should
just
technically go from the point where you're at the 50-foot, so it's like up gradient of flag A20 or A19, somewhere in that, right where you intersect the 50,
Yeah,
along the back of the house.
okay.
And seeing, I'm just curious, underneath the patio, the existing patio now, what do you have underneath there?
Here, I've got photos of
The
that.
existing patio, the deck?
The deck, yeah, I'm sorry, the deck.
It's
yeah.
kind of like loosely laid pavers.
Oh, it's just pavers underneath there? Because you asked that question for me today.
I see it? Yeah, I'm sorry, there they are. Loosely laid pavers, right there.
Okay,
Accurately described.
thank you.
So this will be a waiver request as well, so just keeping that in mind, if anyone has any questions about that aspect of it.
All right, so
That's
we
with
can,
that's with respect to the pool, all right?
That's in respect to the addition and the deck.
yeah, after the fact, deck.
When I talked about there not being any further encroachment from the deck, I just meant that the deck and the patio line up. So the line of the patio is what was approved in the prior COC. The current deck doesn't come out any farther than that toward the wetland. So the encroachment isn't any worse, I guess,
Right.
than what was approved.
All right, so do we have to approve a waiver on the after the fact?
Yes.
We do.
You have to approve the waiver. The only question is whether we need an alternatives analysis, and we've seen it. There's only one alternative, and that's the two alternatives, build it or not.
They did the alternatives analysis for the
Yeah.
addition.
We're talking about the patio,
Right, the deck.
with the one with no permits.
Or, so,
All right, so we still need a waiver.
yes.
So,
And we don't need to vote on that
for
tonight.
for the patio?
Yeah,
I have no problem with issuing, making a motion to grant a waiver for the patio, for the continued existence of the patio.
Do you want to vote that tonight, you said?
So,
We can?
I mean, if you want to wait to see the wall mitigation plan, so to speak, but the patio was only lengthened by a foot, I believe?
Yeah, it got wider.
Wider, I'm sorry.
It didn't get closer to the
It didn't get
wetland.
closer to the wetland, it was
Yeah.
widened by 1 foot. So, but a waiver is required for all 3 aspects, the deck, the patio,
Rather
and the
than
addition.
taking it piecemeal, I think if we get the final vote and all in order, just lay it right out, probably be cleaner than breaking it up tonight.
okay.
Okay,
I'm just trying to be fair to the applicant, to let them know that if they go to the time and trouble of doing what we're asking,
That will approve it.
that we are going to
Approvable.
approve it. We're not going to have them come
Agreed.
in here with a completely modified plan and then beat them up.
Yeah.
You know, I think we ought to be fair to the applicant, let
Fair
them know
enough,
that.
fair enough.
So we got the wall, and we're gonna need a waiver for the addition?
they've submitted all the waiver requests.
Okay. All right, so then we just need to continue.
Well, I think Al was saying, get a sense of that if they're going to keep pursuing this project, that the waivers for each of these items are going to be
So
granted.
that was actually the reason why I moved it, or you can just poll the commission, or the commission can offer opinions if they want.
With the physical barrier and notice
We have a-
by monumentation, I'm fine with the waivers.
Let's see if,
Right, and the deck, we should just approve the waiver on the deck because it's existing, and they filed an after-the-fact modification, right?
What, I don't think that's a given. Each, case should be taken on its merits. The only reason I supported in my recommendations that the deck and the patio be allowed to be maintained is that encroachment was contemplated at the time this house was permitted, and I don't think since it doesn't encroach any further into the no disturb zone, that it's reasonable to
There's
keep
no-
it.
There's no new harm, correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's the reasonableness test, I think.
So then, what is the reason you don't want to grant that waiver?
No, I supported granting the
Oh,
waiver.
okay.
I also support granting the waiver to the house based on their alternatives analysis and the location of the, outside of putting it in the front yard, which there's probably some
Oh, and the
setbacks.
stock, and on your new plan, the stockpile.
Yes.
So may I suggest, let's just find out if anybody on the commission is opposed to giving them the waiver and let them know where they stand.
On the patio, okay, yep.
I do not have an issue with that. I would vote in favor of granting the waiver.
And I'm going to abstain from that issue because I did not hear any alternatives analysis. I still don't have a great idea of exactly how this has changed, other than the patio getting, or deck getting a foot wider. And instead of revisiting all of those issues, I will abstain from the waiver request.
Joe?
Yeah, as long as we get the physical barrier, as we had earlier discussed, I'm okay with the waiver.
No objection.
I agree with Joe.
Okay, so
So
we'll grant the waivers as long as the
You know
law
where you
is-
stand?
Yep.
Okay. So you can go forward and come back with a finished product.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Good job, good job.
Next one on the agenda is, oh, yeah, 242-1692, request for an amendment on 1210 Osgood Street.
So at the last hearing, we still had Lisa reviewing this. She has submitted her final review and is satisfied with all of the stormwater aspects of the project. Since then, we began drafting an order of conditions, an amended order of conditions, and that brought forth some other issues like the need for an updated O&M, which we also received. I don't know, the infiltration, I think, is probably the biggest aspect of what you saw at the last meeting that has been revised, that you should probably see. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Brown for Princeton Properties. Just to kind of give you a chronological update as to what Jen said. We were here on the 10th, and at that point, Lisa Eggleston had raised some issues that perhaps we could locate some more infiltration systems up gradient closer to Osgood Street, as with the change in elevation, more systems were located towards the back. So Hancock Associates engaged in a dialogue with Lisa, and we were able to relocate, I believe it's 4 new infiltration systems up gradient of the, again, closer to Osgood Street. So we went back and forth with Lisa. I know, at least it's my understanding, Lisa ultimately agreed that that was an appropriate design, issued a letter to that effect, and we're happy to explain it. I think procedurally, the commission should be aware we presented the same plan and letters last night to the planning board as part of an amendment to a series of special permits that we had received, and they voted favorably and amended those special permits last night. So if the board has questions as to the specific infiltration systems or how they've been moved, we have Ed Cullen from Hancock Associates here.
Thank you. Jack?
What, do,
Yeah, I would like, if you would go ahead, be able to just sort of take us through an overview of the changes.
So the older system is right down there. The original design was actually like this with down here, but these were actually closed systems. Then we changed it to put all of our design down here. But then after consulting with Lisa Eggleston, she recommended that she spread out the recharge. So rather than putting all of the infiltration here, we added 4 new systems, the ones filled in, just to spread it out a little more. Same amount of water going in the ground, just more, not so much concentrated in one area as it was before. So now we're getting high up, and it's going to the wetlands back here, so as it's flowing underground, it's more saturated throughout. it's just a greater dispersion overall.
The plan we showed last time had infiltrators in those unfilled sections.
Right, in here.
Okay. Is there any change there compared to what you showed last time?
Yeah, these are smaller.
They're a little smaller,
Yeah,
okay.
they're smaller because once we put the water up here,
Okay.
there was no need for them, so there's going to be less excavation.
Slightly smaller,
around that, so.
okay. I have no other questions.
Sean?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Just, I have one question. The rest of the maintenance and the, what we agreed on previously, or pre-construction with the general contractor, that's all, everything stays the same?
Yes,
And you answered all Lisa's, so Lisa's fine with this stormwater,
I think Jen can confirm that, yes.
right?
Yep, you have copies of
Right,
the review
okay.
letters back
All
and
right,
forth.
then I have no questions.
No question.
Doug? All right, motion?
What are you looking for? Jen?
This would be to close an issue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one is, well, there's a continuance. 242-1117.
I will try to get the order out.
213 Berry
amend
Street,
order out
request to
tomorrow. I mean,
continue
I've
to
drafted it
Valentine's
as long as
Day.
it's not major changes and
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And we have 242-1640, pardon me?
Berry Street, continue.
We did the Berry Street continuance.
okay.
I'll second.
Yeah, Deb made the motion and Al seconded.
Deb.
Yeah. And the last one is 242-1644, COC request for 287 Forest Street.
27 Forest.
So, this, if you recall, part of the project was a driveway repaving. It actually passes, it's a driveway that services 2 lots, and it's through a BVW. There was a restoration required as part of this. Hold on, go back to the... And there was some, mitigation. So you can see the 2 mitigation sites on this plan. The one that's closest to the wetland, which you see as sort of near the Lot A wetland, was constructed, planted, monitored, and all as well. The area that you see sort of at the top of the plan, you should have photos, but that area was not planted. There are some evergreens that are planted as sort of like a hedgerow in that area, but behind it, the area is heavily revegetated all on its own. There's a boatload of oak saplings in there and all sorts of things coming back.
So why mess with it?
Right, to put small trees under that oak canopy, probably not gonna be successful anyway. So I recommend that even though that isn't in full compliance with the order, that be considered to be mitigated. Monumentation is up, everything is stabilized, erosion controls are out, so everything looks good.
Any questions, Jack?
No questions.
Sean?
No questions.
Joe?
No
Yeah.
no questions.
Deb?
Okay.
Motion?
Move that we granted certificate of compliance for 287 Forest Street for 242-1644.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So we have a decision. There should be 2, but I only have 1.
We have 3.
We've got High Street and we've
Here's
got...
High Street right here.
And Osgood.
I have
Use mine.
That's all right.
Easy ones.
Are the originals
We
in
got
the
'em both
folder,
here.
or are they in my
can see
packet,
the plans,
my
too.
yellow markings and all that?
Yeah, they were all attached to the document.
Good.
We got
Thank
this
you.
one, yeah, we got the one for High Street here, which is
I got
1724.
that.
And we got the amendment, 1692
All right, I got 1692 on
for,
that High Street.
for Jetta, so
That's all right.
we got them both right here.
So which one do you want to deal with first?
What's first?
Take them in order.
21 High, I think, was heard first, so
that High Street one's first, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. High Street.
So you have all your most up-to-date plans listed there, the ones that were presented tonight, peer review letters, record documents. The permeable clay paver detail is on like the top of sheet 3. It didn't have a date and not much else to identify it, but it is listed as a record document. The monumentation plan is sort of the first 35. The buffer zone restoration plan is referenced, including the monitoring to follow. They propose to monument, I can't remember if that's their proposal for monumentation or mine, but can't remember what their proposal was. They did propose to monument. I think I may have picked out what they should monument with. So landscape improvements. Yeah, that's what I recommended, but I'm not sure. I just want to make sure what they proposed. They showed monumentation, I'm just not sure they specified what it would be, and I guess they didn't, and so they didn't specify what the monumentation would be. And previously, if you recall, on the other side of the pond, we had a hard time keeping their monumentation in place. It kept getting vandalized. I don't think that we'll have that same issue behind a residential building, but I do think something ornamental, since there will be a walking path there, whether it's granite posts or large boulders. But last time they tried the wooden posts, they tried metal posts. None of that stuck around very long, so I think.
Granite post might be appropriate.
Yeah. So, as I thought, those are my recommendations, and if you agree with them, we'll leave them in, but if you don't, speak now.
Agree.
Okay. So the bond amount I put in as $10,500. Improvements on the other side of the pond, which were sort of extensive parking lot and stormwater work, we bonded much higher. This is one residential building. I feel this is in keeping what we've bonded on similar projects. They will be doing a NIPD's permit, so I have the SWIP in there also highlighted. I just reinforced the monumentation in condition 52. I think there's a pre-construction condition about the pavers, Joe.
Did you say there's a detail shown in the record copy?
There isn't, so that's why I asked, I think that's more in keeping with what we want, some kind of three-dimensional detail.
Yeah, so there should be a section in detail.
Oh, we asked for that last one?
We did, but it isn't in there, so that's why I conditioned it.
Where are you conditioning that, Jen? I was trying to look for the plans, for it on the plans. Where are you saying that? What number? 35?
48.
48.
Prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall submit a final detail for the porous paver installation that is proposed for fire lane access. The details shall be approved by the NACC or its agent. More than likely, I'd email it around to you, Joe, and say, how does this look? So.
Yeah, 'cause
So I know what that all says,
Do we
but
want to more clarify it to be, we want to what do you call the detail you would have on the detail?
What I would say there is that the applicant's specification submitted for the porous paver is not approved, and accordingly, therefore, prior to the start of construction, can continue, specifically say that what they proposed is not approved,
Therefore,
and
okay,
therefore, the rest of this is fine.
okay, will do.
I mean, they were in agreement of what we wanted, but there's nothing in writing.
56 is the condition about the O and M and maintenance. The O and M plan, I gave it to Joe and Lou, just to stick it in somebody's packet, but it will be attached to the order of conditions. Condition 79 is something we put on their site on the other side, so only the minimum amount of road salt and de-icing chemicals would be used on paved surfaces, recognizing that they will be using something. And they do show the snow stockpiling locations, but I think they need one more at the end of that fire access path, so they don't just plow the snow on off right into the pond.
So during the discussion when they were here, Lou actually raised a couple of points. One was, how far does the fire truck go? And I think your concern was not getting off the paver path, but to Jen's point is exactly accurate, is, if it is a fire path, you're gonna be clearing it and keeping it maintained, and where do you put the snow at the end?
It shouldn't be at the end.
Shouldn't be, but that's where it's gonna go.
Right.
Unless we say something to the contrary.
So I had asked them to put that on this plan, and on their other plans, you do see it. There's one at the rain garden area, which is right next to the path. They have that marked, and they also have the swale at the end of the parking lot, also has signage on one of their plan sheets, but they didn't add it to the fire lane, so I've added it in the order. And the rest is your standard.
So that's the snow piece of it, which is very well done, but to Lou's point during the discussion is, so what prevents any other vehicle, whether it's fire apparatus or otherwise, just driving down there and driving into the back area?
I don't know if I thought they were gonna put bollards at the end.
They're not showing it on the drawings, that's whether it's bollards or boulders or something.
Or gate.
What I don't want to do is negate the fire department's wishes by giving them,
No, but I'm saying it by putting it
Yeah.
at the end. I'm saying by putting it at the end. That fire truck's only gonna go to the end of the pavement anyways.
If it were to leave the pavement, it would probably head off to the left anyway, wouldn't,
And do a disappearing act.
The fire department approved the plan?
yes.
They're the ones that proposed it.
Yeah.
well, we raised the question in the very first meeting.
Yeah.
About perimeter access.
I have an issue with that, not because my son's a firefighter, but I think buildings should have access all the way around, in case, God forbid, there's a fire,
That's what they're supposed to do.
or an ambulance, so.
Well, I think
We didn't do it at,
our fire,
Copper's Point.
they understand what they need for vehicle access. I think unrestricted access around the building is maintained, and I think that's what they look for.
Well, they couldn't go up there, around the front of that anyways. There was enough room between the walk and that's soft. The truck could do a disappearing act. By parking the truck at that spot that they talked about, they could run all their lines to the front of the building. They don't have to put the fire truck on top of the building, fight the fire. So what they designed will work fine.
So Joe, were you implying you wanted me to put something that access should be limited at the end of that path?
We'll keep people off the sidewalk.
Well, I think Lou's point that he raised was a valid one, but I want to be very careful that we're not defeating the whole intent of the fire department's request to have it there to begin with.
I can ask that question before we modify that condition to include bollards.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
And even if there's a sign at the entry that says, emergency vehicles only, access by emergency vehicles only, at the front of this.
People don't know how to read.
Good point.
You gotta put something in front.
People are on parking.
Well, I don't care about parking. I just, because if you go,
No, it says, that their signage says no parking fire lane.
Yeah, I would think there's something on.
but there's, they can get, by leaving that open, they have access to the sidewalk in the pond. We
Like
don't want,
bollards or something.
yeah, bollards or a gate,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm
The
saying?
gate would have to have
Sheet
a pedestrian.
6 says there's signage here and here, no parking on either side of the drive.
Right,
So I mean,
But that doesn't prevent people from driving down it.
right.
That just prevents them from parking in front of it.
Well, that sounds like it's their problem. That's not ours.
Right, I'm not worried about that at all.
Absolutely.
The concern was that, somebody drives down there, I guess there's two concerns, right? Fire apparatus gets down there and turns off the paved path, problem one, or anybody else who's not fire apparatus being out there that we don't want there either.
Right,
So, but a bollard is something a fire department truck is not gonna be able to get past.
right. Well, that's good, that's fine. It's just, the end you're talking about,
Was that what that's what you're talking about, is just maybe doing something like so,
Down at the bottom.
just down at the bottom here?
down at the bottom.
Just like an L, to
Right.
prevent that, prevent people from turning onto it and prevent them
Yeah, we
going
don't
further in.
want the fire trucks in front because they're gonna sink over there.
All right, so it's probably,
I don't think it's the fire trucks we have to worry about.
Well, or whoever.
Well, whoever's,
So
is
somewhere-
a management problem. It's not
somewhere
our
in the
problem.
79 to 80, I'll add a condition that access, at the end of the fire lane should be prevented, and a plan should be submitted to show how this will be achieved, or something like that.
There you go.
Right.
Let them figure out.
But the-
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Because I suggested a gate, and they were like, "Ugh."
Yeah, okay, so,
Okay, I'll condition it.
yeah.
All right.
Are you satisfied with the O&M plan?
Yes.
All right, so all we need is the subgrade for the pavers.
Yep.
Okay, you're gonna condition that? on
It's
the-
already conditioned.
Okay.
Joe modified that condition,
All right,
actually.
any questions on the decision? Motion?
issue as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. The next one is 242-1692, Princeton Development.
This one gets a little trickier. I bolded the amended aspects of the new site plans and whatnot. It's in there, right there. Added the new amended peer review. Oh, I didn't get a yellow copy. Is anybody's copy yellow,
Loses.
not gray?
Not right?
Yeah, I just, I want to
it yellow.
need the yellow to.
I'll trade you, I'll trade you. Yeah,
There you go.
there you go.
So here's some of the issues I encountered when I started going through the plan set that Lisa wasn't reviewing, is that, like, they had, condition 36, they deleted our buffer zone restoration plan in the new plan set. So they added it in at the end. So some of the plan numbers have changed significantly from the, so I tried to cite in here what was the former plan and what's the new plan, just to make it clear between orders, so my head doesn't
It's a
spin.
pain in the neck, huh?
Yeah, hopefully. So condition 47 is the one Lou was talking about prior to construction as part of the SWIP. Oh, no, that's the erosion control one. I think it's the one before. At least 30 days prior to the start of the land disturbance activities, the applicant shall provide a copy of the SWIP, and in consultation with the applicant's site contractor and project engineers. Basically, there'll be a sit-down before this site gets started on, and I believe Lisa's approval of that construction sequencing plan is required. That was how it was previously written, and that hasn't changed. The bond's still the same, monitoring's still the same.
Not to be, you think that bonding is enough with a state-of-the-art stormwater system and?
It is no longer the state-of-the-art stormwater system that it was before. They were using proprietary bay filter, and we had conditions in here that they had to have a certified bay filter maintenance
And they had to
guy
have the
on.
manufacturer's person doing the maintenance.
Right, so that condition's gone away. You'll see it's completely highlighted in here. It's condition 63. So I don't, if anything, Lisa has said the the maintenance requirements have gone down
Less
as a
robust,
as this amendment.
But this, all right, well, okay, if the commission feels that way, but the site to be disturbed is pretty
Well, before they
impressive.
were trucking in, you know,
Well, they're not that far off. They're not doing 85,000 yards, but they're gonna be doing 50 to 60.
But still less than it was previously, so, I mean,
Increasing.
I guess the argument would have been, maybe the bond should have been high to begin with, but not now.
I think we
never-
also
we
did
never
this
even
in
had a bond
conjunction.
before.
Did this in conjunction with the planning board, who also had a very significant bond, so I think we felt bonding
Oh, they have a
overall.
bond on it
They do,
also?
yes.
All right, then, that's fine.
So in condition 62, we would remove the highlighted section because that refers back to that Bay Saver Technologies, and it would just go on to say the applicant shall provide the NACC with a copy of a 5-year maintenance contract with somebody. Lisa agreed that it no longer needed to be a particular company, that anybody who had the ability to do confined space maintenance would be.
So for simplicity of keeping the numbering sequence intact, is your intent to leave that condition in there and have
Right.
that, rather than saying delete it, is,
Just delete the first part that refers to the bay filter, that they
Okay.
would still have to provide a maintenance contract. Unfortunately, we do have to delete condition 63 because it is entirely related to the bay filter.
but which means you're going to renumber the whole,
Yes. When I delete condition 63, it will automatically renumber. The only thing I'll have to look at the end is the
could we just
reference.
have, leave it in there and have that in bold at the very end of that sentence, very end of that paragraph? Say condition 63 is deleted by virtue of this amendment. That
This way you don't have to redo
That way, any
all of it.
cross-referencing on numbering doesn't have to, you worry about missing something. Just leave it intact.
Okay, I may have already renumbered the end, but I
Well,
may
if you've
not.
already done it, forget it then.
I'll
Are
see
there any
which
other
is,
cross-references that, you know, from one order, one condition, referencing a prior condition?
No.
Just want to make sure we don't miss anything. Like C condition 52 under during construction? Is that, does anything like that result in cross-referencing problems?
so yes, if you, in fact, I can actually go through and have it, you know, track changes, and I can cross out the entire condition and then put the reasoning at the bottom.
Okay.
And leave it intact, like you said.
Might be cleaner.
Okay. In condition 67, drain manhole 14 is no longer located directly adjacent to the 50-foot, so I don't think it needs to be part of any interim as-built situation. And drain manholes, you know, what used to be 24A is now 60, so trust me, looking at these plans was a ton of fun.
Sure.
What number did you just say, 67?
Yep. So drain manhole 14 used to be butted right up against the 50-foot line. It no
Okay.
longer is, so.
Okay, I got you. Got it.
And I think, except as Joe points out, in condition 92, I didn't change them. I said will need to be revised as conditions deleted, but if we leave it in, then everything can
Then
stay
everything
the same.
stays the same, yeah.
Yeah, like, except you have condition 76, that's not gonna be able to be done.
Right, but Joe, you were saying just sort
Just
of
leave them in.
cross it out and put, you know, no longer required per amendment or something like that.
I would definitely make sure that they do 77 with the concrete washing of trucks, because they're gonna wanna wash them when they do the houses.
Well, 70, everything stays.
Yeah.
Nothing gets
Well,
deleted.
just as long as they know it. We're moving, you have any, I have a question on 84. I don't think that's gonna happen.
It's not just in our order, it's in the planning board's order, too.
Okay, well, I still don't think it's gonna happen, but they're gonna salt and sand that, they're gonna salt that
Take
road.
yesterday's condition and they're going to do whatever they have to.
Yeah.
Like all of us did.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be able to salt this town, let alone a particular subdivision, but they'll definitely salt that road.
Well, we could go
I
to
think the
that,
intent is clear what we
So-
want.
so
but
leave it in
We
there.
understand there are going to be
Okay.
emergency
Leave it in there,
Gotcha.
and if...
Every time it snows, Joe.
If there's a violation, if they get too aggressive, we can address it.
There are emergencies.
right,
State of
Okay.
emergency, yeah.
Okay.
So we're voting on the amended order as amended.
So moved.
Second, I guess.
All those in favor say
There you go,
aye.
now you're talking.
Now I'm having a good time.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
There you go.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We need a second.
The last vote
All
was
those in favor say-
Al and Deb.
All right.
And we got Deb and